Wait, did you hear that? The message, the one everyone's talking about. It wasn't a press release, not a legal statement, not even a polished apology drafted by some publicist behind tinted windows. It was raw, handwritten, and allegedly smuggled out of a cell that's been holding one of the most powerful figures in entertainment history. Diddy's final message from jail, if it really is his, has detonated across the internet like a cultural bomb, sending shockwaves through the industry, through fan bases, and through a generation that once saw him as untouchable. But what was in that message? Why did it sound less like a goodbye and more like a warning? And who exactly leaked it? It started as a whisper on social media, a single blurry photo of a folded paper with shaky handwriting and a faint signature at the bottom. Within minutes, screenshots multiplied, influencers dissected every word, conspiracy threads bloomed like wildfire, each claiming to have decoded the hidden meanings behind the sentences that seemed to straddle confession and prophecy. They took everything from me, a one-line read, but the truth still breathes. Those 6 words sent the internet spiraling. What truth, whose truth, and what exactly did he mean by breathes? By nightfall, major news outlets were scrambling for confirmation. Diddy's team stayed silent. No denial, no acknowledgement, nothing. That silence, that absence of control, was louder than any statement he could have made. Suddenly, the man who once commanded headlines found himself buried beneath them. Every blog, every commentator, every voice with a following was dissecting what they called the message that broke the wall. Some said it was fake, a fabrication spun by someone hungry for clicks. Others insisted it was real, that it was Diddy's way of speaking to the world one last time before something bigger came crashing down. Sources inside the correctional facility claimed the note had been passed through a visiting clerk, folded inside a legal file before surfacing online. Nobody could prove it. Nobody could disprove it. But that didn't stop the storm. Fans zoomed into grainy images of the paper, comparing pen strokes, analyzing spacing, even matching indentations with older documents Diddy had signed years ago. Amateur handwriting analysts became overnight celebrities, their TikToks racking up millions of views as they claimed, with absolute certainty, that the loops in the signature were identical to the ones on his past contracts. It was madness, beautiful, chaotic, and digital madness, but beneath the frenzy was something darker, the words themselves. The message wasn't just emotional, it was cryptic. In one passage, he wrote about doors that were never supposed to open, and names that were meant to stay buried. Another line referenced the tapes, plural, and the ones they couldn't destroy. To his fans, it sounded poetic. To the media, it sounded incriminating. And to his critics, it sounded like the beginning of a reckoning. Then came the twist. An audio file, 47 seconds long, a distorted voice, allegedly Diddy's, reading parts of the same message word for word. It surfaced on a small Telegram channel before spreading to Reddit, and then exploding onto every platform within hours. Audio experts tried to analyze it. Some swore it was authentic. Others dismissed it as AI mimicry. But the cadence, the tone, the pauses, they felt human, too human, like a man speaking not to the world, but to himself, knowing every syllable could be his last act of control. The message wasn't just going viral, it was becoming myth. Late-night shows mocked it, then analyzed it. Music forums treated it like scripture, dissecting it line by line, searching for hidden references in his lyrics and old interviews. A few die-hard fans swore the phrase "truth still breathes" echoed a lyric from a demo track he recorded years ago, one that was never officially released. Suddenly, producers, ex-collaborators, and anonymous insiders started emerging, claiming they'd heard things, seen documents, or knew what he meant. It didn't matter how credible they were, the internet had already decided something massive was being covered up. Meanwhile, behind the walls of the facility, The silence was deafening. Guards whispered about Diddy refusing meals, sitting motionless for hours, staring at the floor as if counting the cracks. One unnamed source claimed he had received a warning before writing the message, a visit from someone not on the list, wearing a badge no one recognized. Pure rumor, of course, but rumors once born don't die in the digital age. They evolve, and this one evolved fast. Within a day, the story wasn't just about Diddy's letter. It was about the system around him. Secret visitors, sealed court files, hidden accounts, and now, a message that could, allegedly, bring it all down. The phrase caught fire, bring it all down. 3 words that became a rallying cry, a meme, and a prophecy all at once. Comment sections overflowed with theories. Was Diddy talking about the industry, about individuals, about the machine that made and unmade him? No one knew, but everyone had a theory, and in that chaos, something strange happened. The public, once divided, began to converge, not around Diddy's innocence, but around the idea that something deeper was lurking behind the walls of celebrity power. By the end of the week, verified accounts, actors, musicians, even politicians, were referencing the message, dropping cryptic emojis, or posting one-liners like "truth always breathes." Some deleted the posts minutes later, but screenshots live forever. Each deletion fueled the fire. What started as a leaked note from a jail cell had now mutated into a cultural cipher, part confession, part revolution, and part viral prophecy. And yet, through all the noise, one question kept echoing. If this really was Diddy's final message, what was he trying to warn us about? Because if history has taught us anything, it's that when powerful men start whispering from behind bars, the walls themselves are listening. By the time the sun rose over the city, the message had taken on a life of its own. It was no longer just a letter, it was a phenomenon. News anchors debated its authenticity, while social media turned it into scripture. One moment, it was a desperate cry from a fallen icon. The next, it was treated like a coded warning from a man who knew too much. But somewhere between myth and truth, something else began to surface: patterns. Connections, clues hidden in plain sight, pointing to a network of power that may have been silently unraveling for years. Reporters who once laughed off Diddy's controversies were now digging through old archives, searching for incidents that suddenly made sense in the light of his final message. Unpaid settlements, sealed documents, anonymous payouts. Stories that had vanished from the headlines resurfaced like ghosts, and every ghost carried a name. One investigative journalist claimed the letter contained subtle references to people who had crossed him in the past. Another went further, suggesting that the phrase, "the ones who silenced the sound," was a direct jab at a group of executives who allegedly turned against him when the investigations began. It wasn't evidence. It was speculation, but speculation sells faster than proof. Inside forums and encrypted chat groups, self-proclaimed insiders whispered about Project Haven, a name that appeared nowhere in official records but was suddenly on everyone's lips. They claimed it was Diddy's secret empire, a labyrinth of offshore accounts, front companies, and confidential partnerships that blurred the line between entertainment and politics. And in his message, the line "they thought I'd never talk" became the thread pulling it all apart. Every screenshot, every archived business document, every leaked email suddenly became a piece of the puzzle. Whether those pieces fit together or not didn't matter. The public was already convinced that Diddy's downfall wasn't an accident, it was an execution. As the frenzy grew, so did the paranoia. A producer who once worked with Diddy claimed his phone had been acting strange, that files were disappearing overnight. A podcaster received a cease and desist letter after airing a supposed recording of an unreleased track, where Diddy allegedly rapped about betrayal and surveillance. Even major entertainment companies began issuing internal memos warning employees not to comment on the case publicly. It was as if the entire industry was holding its breath, terrified that saying the wrong thing could trigger the release of something bigger, something buried. But the internet doesn't do silence, it thrives on noise. And soon, that noise became deafening. TikTok creators dramatized scenes from the alleged message. YouTubers released multi-part breakdowns, reading his words like sacred verses. And when one user claimed to have found hidden Morse code in the audio file, beeps faintly audible beneath Diddy's voice, the theory spread faster than fact. Checkers could react. It's not just a confession. One viral tweet said it's a roadmap. Within days, hashtags like #TheMessage, #ProjectHaven, and #Truth still breathes flooded timelines worldwide. Theories collided, merged, and multiplied. Some believed Diddy was signaling the existence of a secret archive, a collection of files, videos, and communications implicating high-profile figures across music, fashion, and politics. Others argued it was metaphorical, that the tapes he mentioned referred to memories, regrets, or even unreleased music. But the mystery had already outgrown the man. The message wasn't about Diddy anymore. It was about what he represented, the collapse of power disguised as entertainment. Then came the footage, a grainy black and white clip uploaded to an anonymous server, showing a figure resembling Diddy sitting alone in a dimly lit cell. His head bowed, his hands clasped together, and his voice barely audible as he murmured something that matched a line from the leaked note. "They built me a throne of lies and called it love." The authenticity was impossible to verify, yet the internet didn't wait for verification. Within an hour, the video had been downloaded, re-uploaded, remixed, and analyzed frame by frame. Viewers pointed to subtle details: the reflection of a guard's badge in the window, a shadow moving behind the bars, the timestamp frozen at exactly 3:33 a.m. As if the universe itself had decided to script this moment. Mainstream outlets jumped on the chaos. Major publications published think pieces calling it the end of the celebrity mythos. Cultural critics compared Diddy's message to the confessions of fallen icons from decades past, arguing that fame, at its peak, always feeds on its own destruction. One columnist wrote, "Diddy didn't lose control, he handed it to us," and maybe that was true. Because every tweet, every share, every reaction was another layer of the story, another brick in the digital monument being built around his downfall. Meanwhile, those closest to him were vanishing from the narrative. Former collaborators went quiet. Business partners deleted posts. A few even suspended accounts altogether. It wasn't just about loyalty, it was survival. Whispers spread that authorities had begun reviewing contracts, tracking financial transfers, and quietly questioning associates. Nobody wanted to be the next headline, and yet, with every silence, the noise grew louder. The more people disappeared, the more the public believed something monumental was about to erupt. Somewhere online, an anonymous user, claiming to be part of Diddy's inner circle, posted a cryptic message. The message wasn't the end, it was the trigger. That single post gathered hundreds of thousands of shares in under an hour. It was followed by a file name echelon1 zip. No one knew what it meant, but the mere existence of it sent chills across the internet. Within hours, users claimed to have downloaded copies. Most links led nowhere. Some were bait for viruses, but a handful claimed they'd seen content. Emails, scanned documents, and what appeared to be a list of contacts. Whether real or fabricated didn't matter anymore. The world was hooked. Every second online felt like standing on the edge of a revelation that refused to arrive. The public wanted answers, and the silence from official channels only deepened the hunger. Analysts on television debated whether the message was a psychological tactic, a marketing stunt, or a desperate act of rebellion from a man stripped of everything but his voice. But even skeptics couldn't deny the effect. For the first time in years, Diddy wasn't just trending, he was haunting the culture, and somewhere, in a cell away from cameras, a man who once ruled the charts sat in silence, watching his final words ripple through a world he no longer controlled. Because maybe, just maybe, that was the plan all along. To speak once and let the world do the rest. By the time the calendar flipped to a new week, the message had grown beyond containment. It was no longer just about a man behind bars. It had become a mirror reflecting everything people feared about power, control, and the secrets woven into fame. What started as a single note from a cell had become a movement of millions. Yet amid the chaos, something eerie began to happen. Files disappeared. Videos that once trended globally began to vanish without explanation. Accounts that shared Project Haven theories were suddenly suspended, entire threads deleted overnight. It was as if someone, somewhere, had decided the message had gone far enough. But history doesn't delete itself quietly. The more content disappeared, the deeper people dug. The vanishing posts only confirmed what they already suspected, that something in Diddy's final words had touched a nerve too sensitive to ignore. The message, once dismissed as a desperate plea, now felt like evidence. Every vanished tweet became a clue, every missing video a confession. Investigators tried to trace the origins of the audio file, only to find that the servers hosting it were registered under shell companies with no traceable owners. Even the Telegram channel that first leaked the letter went dark, its admin accounts wiped, its backups corrupted. Coincidence? The internet doesn't believe in coincidence anymore. Then, quietly, another piece surfaced. A journalist from a small independent outlet claimed to have obtained a longer version of the message, a second page that had never been made public. It contained only a few lines, but they were enough to reignite the fire. If you hear this, it means the walls are falling. Remember the light I left behind. Those words struck like thunder. Was this the missing piece or another fabrication? It didn't matter. The timing was too perfect. The journalist's outlet crashed under the weight of millions of visitors within hours, and by morning, their website displayed only an error message. The longer version of the message was gone. That disappearance fueled the theory that the message was not just a cry for help, it was a countdown. A warning about something that hadn't yet happened. Some claimed the light I left behind referred to a vault, a hidden location where Diddy had supposedly stored everything: videos, documents, names. Others said it symbolized his legacy, the empire he built and the ghosts it carried. And then there were those who believed the message was spiritual, that Diddy had reached a point where confession and prophecy had become the same thing. He wasn't trying to expose them. One popular TikTok creator said through trembling breath, he was trying to free himself, but the digital storm was far from over. A former employee of one of Diddy's companies came forward anonymously, appearing in silhouette during a late-night interview. Their voice was altered, their name withheld. They claimed to have seen recordings that matched descriptions from the leaked message, footage stored across multiple encrypted drives. He kept backups, the voice said. He always knew this day would come. When asked what was on those drives, the whistleblower paused for a long moment before replying, "People you wouldn't believe." That phrase alone was enough to fracture the internet once again. Suddenly, names began to circulate. High-profile figures, once untouchable, were now being dragged into the whirlwind. Screenshots, flight records, and financial statements began to surface, some real, some clearly manipulated, but all feeding into the same narrative. Diddy hadn't fallen alone. He'd pulled the entire tower down with him. Governments issued statements urging the public to avoid misinformation. Yet even those words carried an undertone of fear. If it truly was misinformation, why did it feel so dangerous? And then came the silence. The kind that feels heavy, deliberate. No new leaks, no statements, no sightings. Even the hashtags began to fade, as if the world had been told to move on. But silence, when it comes too suddenly, only deepens suspicion. A few persistent investigators continued digging and found something chilling. The correctional facility's visitor logs from the week before the message appeared online had been redacted. Entire pages blacked out. No names, no signatures, no timestamps. Officially, there had been technical errors. Unofficially, it looked like erasure. One late-night host called it the most viral ghost story of the modern age, and in a way, it was. Because every version of Diddy's message, real, fake, or imagined, seemed to carry the same haunting energy, a man trapped not by walls but by truth. He'd spent decades crafting an empire built on rhythm, wealth, and image, yet in the end, it wasn't music that made him immortal. It was a letter, a single sheet of paper that outlived his freedom. Weeks passed and still no one could prove where the message had come from, or if it had even come from him at all. But maybe that was the point. Maybe the power of the message wasn't in its authenticity, but in the reflection it forced upon the world that consumed it. Because as the headlines faded and the platforms moved on to new scandals, a quiet realization lingered in the corners of the internet. If someone like Diddy could fall, then what about the ones still standing? What truths had yet to surface? Somewhere in the deep corners of the web, a video reappeared, a clip only a few seconds long, showing a faint silhouette at a window, humming the opening bars of a familiar melody. The timestamp was new, the location unknown, the sound distorted, but at the very end, before the screen cut to black, a whisper could be heard, "The light still breathes." And just like that, the story began again,